You also talked about this idea of like CEOs bringing on COOs as the company scale. Over the last 10 or 15 years, have you seen that change or evolve, or how has that changed and evolved?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's been a massive shift. And so if you go back to the 90s, what would happen is venture capitalists would invest in a company. And one of the first things that they would often do is they'd get rid of the founder CEO and they'd bring in a hired gun to come run the company. This still happens in biotech, by the way, pretty frequently. So many founders ended up just not running their own companies. And so the companies were less innovative. They were less willing to sort of break glass on things that they'd sort of thought were dogma but were wrong. That all shifted in the mid-2000s when Sheryl Sandberg joined Facebook. And that created a whole new model for the fact that you could hire a COO instead of having to have somebody come in and replace you. And the primary reason that Zuck was able to get away with that is because he had board control. And the primary reason he had board control is because Sean Parker got fired from a company called Plaxo that I used to work at the time when Sean was there. I was a consultant to the company. And Parker then convinced Zuck that he should really sort of build out a real board. He should have control of the board so that he couldn't get fired. And then Sheryl got hired as COO. That worked magically. And then that became the pattern for every other company since then. So if you even look at something like Google, Eric Schmidt came in as the CEO, and Larry and Sergey really dragged their feet on it, right? It took them a year or two to hire a CEO. They always found something wrong with each candidate. If you think about the people who kept running their own companies in the 90s, or 80s and 90s, it's people who bootstrapped. So it was Microsoft, right? Bill Gates kept running his own company because he never really raised external capital. Or Michael Dell effectively bootstrapped. And so it's interesting to see that big transition happen.
Interesting. Do you have any color or backstory on how Eric Schmidt happened then? I mean, they dragged their feet for 2 years. Like, how did?
They dragged their feet for a while. I don't know if it was 2 years or 1 year, but it was a while relative to the search. And I think the rumor is that, I can't remember if it was Mike Moritz or John Doerr, they were both on the board. One of them threatened to quit if they didn't just hire the CEO, right? They're like, just fill the role already. And I think what happened is Eric has a PhD in CS, so he's actually quite technical. And then secondly, I think he was already going to Burning Man, and so that was a big, okay, he's a burner, and so it's okay, like he's not a real CEO.
Yeah. Well, and also he was CTO at Sun, right? He wasn't even CEO, and so it's kind of an interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting thing.
Well, he was CEO of Novell after that, I think.
Gotcha.